Bonsoir.
Good evening.
مساء الخير. You better say it, Veronique. I can't do sign language. I'm sorry. Raise your hand. But now we have your attention. Don't do that, please. Good evening, friends. I do want to welcome especially those who arrived since yesterday to the house. So welcome those who arrived yesterday and today. We finished the first part of the core forum yesterday, the Healing the Wounds of the Past session. And a few people stayed on for this coming one. This is the opening part of the Trust and Integrity in Democracy session. And so everybody, this will be a very light evening. It is just really a welcome. We do have the main part is the Oscar winning, not winning yet, but the Oscar nominated film, Stranger at the Gate. We will do the why trust and democracy, why initiatives change, why Caux, why now, in the morning when we're all fresh, a little bit more fresh. So this is a bit of the lighter one. So I'd like just to cover a bit of the housekeeping, if you like, aspect of our time together and give you a bit of an overview of the next 3 days before we move to the film. We do have an online audience, so this part is being recorded. We also have our communications team who are filming and photographing the event. So if you do not like or wish to be filmed or photographed, make sure that you're wearing a red lanyard. And if you don't and you would like one, go to speak to reception or to the welcome desk, please. If you need to use the toilets, the closest to this hall would be just outside the door, and then the first thing on the left-hand side by the doors. There's also on the third floor, just as you go down here. Exit, in the unlikely case of fire, just through the doors into the street, please. Throughout the plenaries and whatever happens in the next few days, there is different languages will be spoken. So if you don't speak or understand English, German, French, and Russian all together, you will need to come into the hall with a headset, which you can find at the doors as you come in. So pick up one as you come in, please. We do like to start on time, so we ask you to please do always be here a few minutes before so we can settle in. And just finally for now, some of you have been to Caux, some haven't been before. It is, as you can see, a multicultural, multiracial, multilingual sitting, and just inviting us all to be sensitive to the others and to carry each other in this house where we share the building, the house, the facilities, and the conversations. So while I give myself some time to see if I've missed anything, I would move swiftly to the overview of the next 3 days, and I'll invite my colleague, Claude Bourdan, who's convening the team who have been planning this session for you to go over that, please. Claude.
Mark, who is in charge of the next step of the program, has asked us to be short, and I had prepared this speech, so I've decided to cut it by half. So I'm Claude Bourdan from France. I've been part of this planning team, and here we are. It starts. No, why do I speak in English? Je vais parler français.
I'm going to speak in French. Sorry, but I already wrote it in French, so I'm going to have to read it in French. So here we are. 3 days of meetings, which are going to be important, enlightening, and are destined to talk about our reflections. It's a very good exercise. That means that when you come here, don't take anything for granted, and don't expect that it will all be in English, because there will be people speaking German, French, maybe even Ukrainian or other languages. So make sure you have your headsets with you, please. So 3 enriching days ahead. We are going to talk about what needs to change so that we can find... Oh, okay, he's already telling me I'm taking too much time. So the objective is how we're going to find trust and integrity in democracy. But this is not just a reflection on a high level, this is reflection for each one of us, so that we can move through the barriers that exist, so that we can live together in our societies. Within this house, we are trying to create change so that the world will change. So 3 days is actually quite short when we think about all of the preparation that has gone ahead for this to happen. 7 months of preparation. So I would like to ask the preparatory team if they can please stand up so that we can see who you are. There's Mark, he can stand up as well, please. Could you please all stand up? Sebastian, and there are a few others who are around. Louis over there, Laurent, Olga, there she is, Arpan. Olga is preparing for the next few meetings. Yep, we've already mentioned Laurent. So it's a very small team of volunteers. And you might be wondering, why are they doing all of this? Why are they putting themselves through it? First of all, Caux is in our hearts. Secondly, this theme of democracy is very important. Thirdly, because we believe that this house for initiatives of change can play a role in finding solutions to the problems that we face today. So a few practical things for the next few days. Tomorrow we're going to talk a bit more about the organisation of the plenary sessions, but before that, the first meeting tomorrow morning is at 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh no, sorry. 5 o'clock. Nope, it's at 7 o'clock. So this is where we're going to have a moment of silence and a moment of reflection. This will be in 2 different languages. The French speakers are going to be in the Belle Epoque, which is just over here. And the English speakers will be in room 400. You take the corridor there, which is just next to the productions, and then it's just a bit further along. After, we are going to have lunch, breakfast, and then at 9 o'clock there will be a meeting. It will start on time. A few people are going to be talking about their experiences, their life experiences with initiatives of change. A little practical piece of advice for you. Some of you have arrived today, you have gone past the reception and you have seen that there are pages for you to sign up to workshops and community groups. Some of you haven't done that. So after this evening, we would like to encourage all of you to go and sign up for a community group. This is a small group that will meet 3 times and this will help you. So there are French speaking groups and there are English speaking groups. Then you can also sign up for workshops. There are 3 workshops every day. The workshops are not done twice, so they are different every single day. There is a certain limited number of spaces, so please do try and sign up before the list is full. For those of you who have got the app, the Hoover app, you can see all of this information on there, and for those of you who don't have it, you can go to reception to ask for the planning. And then for any other questions that you have, please don't hesitate to contact any of us. Have I still got 10 minutes left? Is that all right? Okay, 3 things which are quite important actually. Tomorrow we are going to have a bishop from Nigeria who's going to do mass at 7 o'clock, and then it will also happen the next day in the Catholic chapel. There will also be a meeting with Ukrainians tomorrow, and then Tuesday night we are going to have a relaxing cultural evening with music. So there you go. Let's make sure the day starts well tomorrow at 7:15. Thank you very much for being here. See you tomorrow.
Merci beaucoup, Claude. So, friends, I've been alerted that I did not include Ukrainian when I listed the languages, so also Ukrainian is on the list, and it's very important. We have a good number of Ukrainian friends in the house who also don't speak English. Some of them don't speak English. And as Claude just told us, we also have a Ukrainian conversation or a conversation with some of our Ukrainian participants tomorrow evening. So we're delighted with that. The app, if you need it, I'm just repeating what Claude just told us, please sign up to the communities and the workshops. I think with that we can pass it to you, Mark, and to Ahmed for the film evening. Mark, over to you, please. Enjoy the evening, the rest of the evening.
So, welcome. This film we're about to introduce is a prime example of what I've been talking about this week in introducing an initiative with a team of dedicated changemakers and folks from the industry that I'm personally motivated to realize. It's called this Trust Film Forum and Festival. You've probably seen all this literature around some of the rooms and workshops here. This new educational and enabling program is a powerful and compelling manifestation of a focus that has been my passion. The potential of the medium of storytelling is what its focus is. It's better known today, filmmaking, as content. So, stories. It's storytelling that brought me to IofC several years ago, when I was documenting the role of storytelling in film, and I was fortunate enough to be asked to help make a film with Imad Karam. That was the man who built Peace about 8 years ago. Helping with that film, it was inspiring to understand more about the MRA tradition that began with plays performed around the world and then evolving into ever more adventurous films. Now, to me, it was interesting because they were films with a purpose. And as I heard again on the Friday plenary, it was focusing on how to expedite global cooperation. And it was suggested it was about changing the story and constantly rewriting experience to come closer to truth. And in so doing, address repression and focus on the role of, among other elements, the status of democracy around the world. So it's these stories that make the changes so many aspire to be initiated, as it was pointed out, at community and local and at the personal level, and to build from there. Now, I've heard over and over again in the past week here about the importance of narrative, how we tell stories, and what they can do to reflect and make change. And of course, this can be either with powerfully positive or powerfully negative outcomes. So, Stranger at the Gate, which is the Oscar-nominated film, you'll probably see the poster in a moment, from Josh Siftel, who's with us virtually tonight, and he's on a Zoom link. Now, it's illustrative of the power of storytelling to give voice and change lives and provide an insight into the most complex of dilemmas and crises and issues that face us in the world today. So you may have seen the film I'm also helping to make with him, just helping. It's called Bridges, and it's another example very close to this. It's part of that tradition of bringing difficult and uncomfortable but life-affirming stories to wider audiences for the purposes of affecting real debate and real change and lasting difference, offering a template at its best for a new way of approaching eternal issues of conflict and strife and oppression and the threat to democracy. So we're starting this initiative to bring not only these kind of films, and we discovered so many of them out there across the world, to wider audiences, giving a voice to people from areas of oppression and to people who would otherwise not be heard, to listen to their unique stories and discover the commonality in the human experience that can, in some ways, also offer a template for living. But it's not just film we're talking about. It's the evolution of media content. And today, that is shooting on perhaps an iPhone and finding a way to do that effectively and powerfully for those less accustomed to the language, perhaps from repressed areas, enabling new storytellers through a new Film Academy initiative that is parallel with this, and finding audiences and distribution for that content through an online channel and the community of storytellers that this initiative will create. And since this was started, we found that there are so many across the world with a passion to tell their story and bring their own perspective, whether shooting, as I said, on an iPhone, or bringing immersive experiences to life, producing content online, or interacting with their audiences through virtual and AR experiences. And there is a workshop this week that looks more closely at these issues, from somebody who's coming from the United States, to look at the challenging and nevertheless exciting potential of things like AI for better or for worse. And all can, it seems, contribute to the storytelling experience. But if you have an interest in this and perhaps would like to help all of us make this happen, that the special forum and event that we're looking perhaps even hosting here next year in between or around these wonderful IofC forums at Caux, then please do get in touch and help us with this expansion of this community. There's information on the leaflets that you can see around the building for those of us who are working to try to bring this into reality. And the intention is to run screenings, Q&A sessions like the one we're doing here with the filmmakers, and with workshops on the themes and the stories, and investigating with intuition for the filmmakers, for those keen to make movies about their lives and their experiences and become digital content entrepreneurs. Most importantly, to have a voice. The event in Caux would be accompanied by festival events in London via our partners, the Belief International Film Festival, and potentially in Belfast and in Mallorca with the Film Commission, to widen the audience and create this global interest and following. These TED-style televised talks that we plan that support these films open up the themes raised for debate. But more than that, they look at critical areas where we can go beyond talk to action and implementation with these extraordinary stories as the role model for change and to take initiatives for action. And so, this leads us to Josh Siftel in New York. Hopefully there's a picture of him on the Zoom link. He directed the Oscar-nominated Stranger at the Gate, and there's a poster we have of him as well. It's a story of a US Marine who plans a terrorist attack in a mosque in a small American town. And his plan takes an unexpected turn when he comes face to face with the people he's trying to kill, forcing him to confront his own actions. The film seems to challenge some of the very notions that we may have about how we perceive living within a democratic society today, and echoes many of the themes that we've been looking at in the past week in terms of peace and reconciliation and healing the wounds of the past. So interestingly, Josh has described his work as drawing him towards telling stories with purpose that build bridges and understanding. The match, therefore, for the two, the work of IofC, it feels strong, and so too is the intersection that seems represented by the question: how do we make stories work and impact lives positively using those stories, with those stories? Ahmed Jamal, with us here, is a leading filmmaker, Emmy-nominated with several highly provocative and revealing documentaries under his belt, and he's here to ask a couple of the questions asked till we screened this 30-minute movie with the very kind consent of Josh Siftel, the producers in the United States, who've kindly offered the exclusive screening privilege here at Caux, and the Malala Foundation, of course, who co-produced. And then afterwards, Josh has kindly offered to hold a virtual Q&A with us from New York to discuss some of the themes raised. So after this, there'll be drinks on the terrace. I'll stop speaking now. So please stick around afterwards, and let's open up the discussion then, if you care to. For now, it's Stranger at the Gate.
Most of the time when I tell people this story, they tell me that they don't believe me and that I'm making it up or that it's not true. When I was younger, he was amazing. He was just always there for me when I needed someone. You always hear about mass murders and how terrifying they are. But you can never really imagine that hurtful and harmful person to be in the same house as you.
I like an American country music. I mean, just the quietness and the soothing. I mean, I don't know how many kind they are. There is just one that I listen. It's just the background, country music. I listen to that. It kind of relaxes me.
The country music, it seems to me it's coming from the heart, how you feel about the society or the community, wherever you live, and to express those feelings in a very simple and straightforward way.
I felt I became American, I think after maybe 5 years. After I learned that language, I was in school. I had the second child born. I became very comfortable with my life.
I felt as an American probably early on, and the community also embraced me without any hesitation.
I came to Muncie in 1986 as a refugee. I was living in the refugee camp in Pakistan due to the Soviet invasion in Afghanistan. Lived there for 6 years. Then I got engaged with my husband there, and then he brought me 5 years later to the United States, and we got married in '86.
I am a family physician here in Muncie, Indiana. The pictures of my children are in each room. I treat my patient as my family. So I tell my patient that I came by choice, and I appreciate the refugee status, that I came as a refugee. And then I tell them they are my family, because if something happening to me, my family is far away. They will be coming to my rescue.
How would people describe me? I would probably say that they would describe me as strong and stubborn. They would describe me as a mom, because my main goal is to raise my daughter to be a strong young woman. When I first met Mac, there was no doubt that he was a jarhead. One of the things I loved about him was his commitment to, ironically enough, to his country. Mac and I had a long-distance relationship for just over a year. I decided to introduce him to Emily. I said, this is going to be the deciding factor, because if she's not good, Mom's not good.
She wanted to make sure that I was going to have a good father figure in my life for later on. And so we moved to Muncie all together when I was 5, and he just was my dad from there on.
Their relationship was very close. They liked to go a lot of different places together, go fishing. He let her drive his car.
We both called each other our road dogs, because we would just go everywhere together and just hang out all the time when I was really young. He was amazing.
How did killing people change you?
Never really told that. Hold on a second, man. I was a fairly happy kid. I had friends. I liked to run the streets. In high school, I'd gotten in a lot of trouble. My biggest downfall is I was involved in drugs, both using and selling. It made life harder on me. Made school almost, well, it did make school impossible. I joined the Marines at 18. I saw it as a respect thing. My dad came from nothing. Big family, poor. He had quit school, joined the military, and he did 4 years in the Marine Corps. By me joining the military, not only the military, but the Marine Corps, and going through some of the same stuff he went through, I figured I'd get his respect. I didn't have it, but I knew it would get me away from what I was doing. I was in the military for a long time, around 25 years. Towards the end of my military career, I was a totally different person. The fact of being involved in so many deaths over years, it was a crazy time, man. I don't even know I probably would have been committed if they would have actually known the way I was acting. One time I had a discussion with a higher ranking person about coping. He looked at me straight in the eye. Says, Mac, you're on the range, you're shooting at a paper target. As long as you can look at them as anything but human, you won't have any problems. I said, oh, okay, that makes sense, yeah. And that's what I did.
I'm a very family-oriented person. I love family. I'm a Williams, so the Williams family go way back here in Muncie. My great-great-grandfather was lynched and was castrated, and so I grew a dislike towards white people. It was so bad. I was 21 years young, long time ago, when I first came into the religion. The community was beautiful. I never experienced anything like that, the closeness of anything until I came to this community.
The story I was told for starting the Islamic Center was that it was my dad and 2 other Muslim brothers that were kind of the kickstarters of the mosque. And so an Afghan, a Syrian, and a Bangladeshi brother, that kind of unity to start a mosque through, from these different walks of life, different countries, different refugee stories, and to come together and create a mosque. So that's a beautiful thing. My parents are mountain movers, I would describe them as. Both come from very, very humble beginnings in Afghanistan. It was really always an open door at our house.
Just anyone who needed a place to stay, I would welcome them to stay with me from all walks of life. They will come to our house, I will wash their clothes and clean their clothes and cook for them.
My dad calls my mom the Mother Teresa of the Muslim community, and it's definitely true. It's in her DNA to just be that self-sacrificer, to really put her everything on the line to make even one person's life better.
I think 9/11 changed me and a lot of community members in a big way.
It was shocking. I couldn't believe it. We were just as devastated as anybody else, as any other American.
For me personally, it was very difficult to see that in the United States. As I say, we have come from those countries where there was killing, there were bombing, and just like you come here as you live in a peace, seeing that was very difficult for me personally.
I had some discrimination. You can tell when we went out, people looked at us a little bit differently. People saw us a little bit differently.
Go back to your country, that you have towel on your head, just making these remarks, it really hurts you.
When I moved to Muncie, I started to notice some things with his behavior that I hadn't earlier. Usually when he would talk about the things that happened, it was when he would drink or he would be really sad.
Military career ended with me getting injured, and it started a cycle of events. Living in Muncie, now I was being forced to see people that I considered an enemy every time I went out the door.
We would, go to Walmart and you walk down the aisle and start to go down an aisle and I would see a woman in hijab and would intentionally divert our path.
This is my story. This is my country, my city. Got to the point to where I just wanted to do harm to them.
I guess I just held on to the hope, that being in a loving relationship would help him move away from the anger and the hatred that he had. I never thought in a million years that he would consider doing anything to anyone.
I started thinking, between being drunk and sober, I was brainstorming, how can I make this right? My country's done with me, but I'm not done with it. I would die for that cloth. Gladly. So I came up with a plan. I said, okay, not an explosive expert by no means, but I knew enough to make a bomb. Let me find a good place where I think I can get the most bang for my buck. My plan was to detonate an IED right outside the Muncie Islamic Center on a Friday afternoon when they were all gathered. And I was hoping for at least 200 or more, dead, injured, at least. That was my goal, 200 or more. I knew I'd get caught. My DNA's on a national data bank. I was good with that. I wanted to be in court. I wanted to make my statements. I wanted to tell people, yes, I did this.
There was this boy at my school, and his mom came to pick him up, and she was in this long dress with long sleeves and a full head covering that only showed her eyes, and I was really confused by that because I had never seen that before, and I was wondering why I couldn't see anything of her. And I went home that day and told my dad about it, and he flipped out.
This little Muslim kid, future terrorist, sat across from my daughter. I blew up. At the end, I actually went into my room and just broke down and cried. I let these people get close to my family.
I was just very confused and probably scared of why he was just freaking out over what this woman was wearing, and it just seemed so weird to me and strange. And I looked at him like, what are you going on about, you crazy, crazy man?
When I have a little girl sitting in front of me, looking at me like I'm crazy, questioning, man, I really love this guy or not? This little girl's my world, man. And I can't have that happen. I need her love. So I said, okay, I know I'm right. These people were killers. And I knew that in order to be able to stand and face my daughter about this, about what I have planned, I need to be able to show her proof. I need to be able to show the rest of the world proof. So I went to the Islamic Center to get the proof. I didn't wanna be with these people, because if I walk inside this building, I might not come out.
When I first saw him, I was driving down the street, and then I was actually coming to the masjid. And when I saw him, he was walking kind of fast. His head was kind of down, kind of lower, you know, he was kind of red in the face a little bit. Right? The guy knew something was wrong. Yeah.
So I walk in the building, and all of a sudden, it's like, I felt my stomach tighten up, chest tighten up. I tried to keep my senses about me. I got very anxious. I didn't trust him. I considered myself somebody as a future news story on Al Jazeera. By the end of the night, I figured they would have me in the basement with a sword to my throat.
He just looked like this guy who had a lot on his mind, pacing back and forth. I remember saying that there's something not right with this guy.
He looks at me and I look at him. He smiles and he said, "Can I help you?"
My first impression of seeing him, I don't want to say like was a little scary.
I looked around thinking about my plan, and I actually looked at individuals like, yep, he's gone, he's gone.
My first impression of McKinney was he seemed to be like a redneck. So it was somewhat scary in the beginning, but he came to the masjid and he's like a guest also. So I couldn't help it except to hug him and make him feel, not artificially, from my heart, that he is welcome and he is part of us.
To this day, that still doesn't make any sense to me. To this day. These people kill non-believers for sport. It's what they do. It's in their book. He sits at my feet. He hugged my leg. This guy doesn't know me. Hugged my leg. That was pretty heavy. They don't even know the truth.
That is one of my duty. When you say salam to somebody, salam, what that means to tell this other person that you are safe from me. There will be no danger from me.
I just wanted to die. That's all I wanted. I wanted the peace, man. I needed to stop the voices. I needed to stop the noise. And I just wanted the peace.
Somehow, I believe that he was genuine, and he has issue. All of us have issue in the military, post-traumatic stress syndrome, whatever that might be, or some other thing. And maybe he's looking for a solution. He's looking for a solution. And if you can be a solution for him, for some of his stresses, why not to be extra kind to him?
I comforted him. I gave him the attention. I think that's the basic memory that I have. Not only just with Mac, I would do this with any guest.
These people were just plain old pleasant. Happy to be alive. Happy to be in America. Just happy. And more than happy to talk to me.
I personally believe that we need to be kind to those people even more. The people sometimes they might have some difficulty, some concern, some stress. I personally believe that we should be more kind to those than people who are successful or who already know what they're doing.
He can't completely forgive himself for the things that he did.
What are you thinking about?
Just how he thought he was doing the right thing and doing it for the right reasons, and how much he sacrificed and how much he suffered for the things that he was asked to do.
Actually, when he came back, I was surprised to see him come back. Yes, he came, not that same day, but he came back like the next day and so forth. Started hanging around the masjid more, coming to prayer, coming to the dinners.
I think it was probably one of the first times in a while where he felt like he was just a part of something like that was bigger. He probably had been missing that part of his life for a while.
We'll talk about his wife. We'll talk about his daughter. We'll talk about his tours he had in other countries. I thought they were very interesting. because he came from an environment. He came from an environment where he was killing Muslims. He was at war with Muslims, right? In his mind, right? So I was able to understand.
He definitely wanted to be a part of the community, and he felt welcome, and he, you know, it was really kind of bizarre because he was hugging the people that he wanted to choke.
The more time I spent around him, the more I started to change. Spent so long in the military, man. And, you know, I had this band of brothers, if you want to call it. It was gone. We'd been disbanded. There was no more. It's funny, I had a dream that I was on the range and I had shot a paper target. And instead of just a hole being put in that target, the target started bleeding. And I went down and I wiped off the blood. It wouldn't stop. That target would not stop bleeding. Blood was just flowing from the target. That's when I really felt things were about to change. It took 8 weeks to change my mind. It took 8 weeks to remove all of that hatred, all of that planning, all of everything out of my heart. I said, I need to be a Muslim.
I got off the bus one day from school and I see all of these people standing outside my house in like FBI like coats and jackets and stuff like that. They were looking for something and I didn't know what that something was.
We went to the apartment where Mr. McKinney was residing at that point in time, went up to Mr. McKinney's door, knocked on his door, and Mr. McKinney answered.
They came and they questioned me. They asked if I mind if they would bring a bomb dog to the house. Absolutely, you come right ahead. It had been disposed of. It doesn't exist anymore.
We talked to him for a little bit longer, the FBI agent did. Felt like Mr. McKinney wasn't really a credible threat at that point in time, that he wasn't going to put anything into action at that point in time.
I never thought in a million years. I felt kind of foolish because I didn't recognize that that was even a potential that he had.
It's still kind of hard for me to even wrap around my head that my dad would have been known as a mass murderer.
One of the members came to me and asked me, do you know that Richard was planning to do this? I cannot believe that this is what I heard. That was the time I invited him over for dinner. And I asked him, I said, what in the world were you thinking, Richard?
I remember like being amazed, like what? He wanted to do what? I remember asking, what was the deal, man? What was going on through your head? What was your problem, man?
He didn't know anything better. That's exactly what he said. Sister Bibi, what if I had met you, meeting somebody like you, if I had that much understanding, I would have never thought about this.
You showed me the right way. You showed me what true humanity is about. Just put Islam aside for a second. You showed me what true humanity was about.
Go get him!
When Mac went to the mosque and the way he was treated, the way he was embraced, it did save his life. It saved the lives of the community. Had they turned him away, had they treated him differently, it would be a whole different story than what he has to tell now.
Oh, I love the man. Mac is a great man. Mac is a good person. Now, I have someone here who can who will definitely protect us if something happened to us.
I do see Rachel as my little brother, and who came to the center, and then he needed that support.
So anyway, I appreciate everyone. I just want you to know that each and every one of you, even the ones that are not here, will always be in my heart. Thank you. I could never, in a million years, could never repay this community what they've given me. I see a lot of my actions now as a making of amends. Surah 5, 32nd verse in the Quran. To kill one human being is as if you killed all of humanity. But to save one human being is as if you saved all of humanity. I hope the day comes when I can forgive myself. Maybe.
Islam was definitely a positive change for Mac. And I ultimately supported that change, but it wasn't the right choice for me. Even though we're not married anymore, I still care about him. I hope that he finds forgiveness for himself and that he can be happy.
I love my dad. He's still an amazing dad. He always likes to tell me dad jokes, which I absolutely despise, yet I love at the same time, but I won't tell him that.
But, sorry? Now it's working, okay. Here's Josh, hi, joining us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, great. Well, I've got Ahmed Jamal here with us here. So he's gonna, if that's okay, we've just watched the film, and he's going to just ask a few questions before we open it out to the audience. Is that okay?
Wonderful.
Cool, okay.
Hi, Josh. Great to
Hello.
see you. Great to see you again. Little bit about this film is Josh, his PR company invited me to see the film in London, and while I was watching it, I knew this would be a fantastic film to have here for Mark's event. And immediately after the screening, I asked Josh and I spoke to Malala, and they both were encouraging and saying, yes, we'd be interested. So it's a culmination of something that started accidentally, but it's turned out very well. And watching the film again, I feel the same emotions, and I think you did a fantastic film, and it's should have won the Oscars.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you a simple question about why were you drawn to this story, and how did you find the story? And did you have any doubts about the man, that was he really going to do this?
Yes, thank you. And thanks for having me. I wish I could be there in person. I'll start by telling you, I found the story it was in a newspaper. It was a newspaper article, and it told the story of Mac and this, incredible transformation that he had gone through. And I immediately was drawn to it, in part because I had spent the last several years working on a series of short films about Muslim Americans. Okay. And you might ask, how did a Jewish guy end up doing a series about Muslim Americans? And I'll tell you that story. So I was, as a boy, I grew up in upstate New York in a small town about 3 hours north of New York City. And in that town, there were very few Jewish families, and I faced a lot of anti-Semitism. Kids called me names. Kids threw pennies at me in the hallways to see if I might bend over and pick the pennies up, and to prove that I was a cheap Jew. Someone threw a rock the size of a brick through the front window of our home, and memories like that stayed with me even after I became a filmmaker. And then 9/11 happened, and I saw in the US my Muslim friends facing a similar kind of hatred that I had faced growing up. And I felt a connection to that, and felt that as a filmmaker, maybe I could do something in some small way to help. So I started making films and telling stories about American Muslims that were designed to shatter some of the stereotypes that were happening in the US. And so this film, The Stranger at the Gate, is actually the 25th short film that we've made in the series.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? Did I answer everything? I feel like I might have left some. Yeah.
So basically, it was what drew you to the story. I mean, was this in a big news in the States, or did you pick it up?
No, it was a small story. Again, we found it in a small newspaper, and it was what drew me to it was just the power of his transformation. And it's the kind of story that we never hear about, even though it does happen. Sure. We always hear about the story, obviously the stories where people go through with it, the crimes and the hate crimes, and we don't often get to hear about people changing their mind and people going through transformations and finding redemption. And it does happen. And I think if we shared those stories more often and more widely, I think it could have a really good effect. That's my hope.
Okay. And what was the reaction of the mosque and to your request to film? And what do they think of the film afterwards?
Sure. So initially we were trying to locate the Barami family. This is before we made the film. And we wrote them emails and sent them texts and called and could not reach them for many months. And finally, we found out that Bibi Barami had been in a coma, that she had had some sort of routine surgery that didn't go well, and she slipped into a coma. And she was just coming out of it when we finally were able to reach her. And she was at home, and her son, Zaki, who's also in the film, was taking care of her. And, she said to me, once I explained to her what we were doing and why and what the story was, and our intentions, she said, well, I wasn't sure if I was going to live through this, and I don't know how much longer I'll live, but if I participate in this film, it will be one way for my message to live on. And so she was very excited to be a part of it. And in fact, she gave us the keys, literally gave us the keys to the Islamic Center so that we could use it as our home base when we did the production in Muncie. And we filmed all of the interviews in the basement of the mosque when we were there. So fast forward to several months later when we finished editing the film, and the first place we wanted to share the film was at the mosque with the congregants to make sure that, to make sure that we got the story right, to make sure that they liked it, and that meant a lot to us. So we set up a screening in the basement of the mosque again, and about 80 members came. We didn't know what they would think, but we showed the film. And, when the film was done, the lights came up, one man stood up in the back and raised his hand, and he said, I have one thing to say about this film. He said, how do we make sure that every American sees it?
Well done.
And, in that moment, I felt two things. I felt, number one, a sense of relief. Okay, we told the story right. And the second thing I felt was a sense of obligation of, okay, how do we do that? How do we make sure that people see this film? And since then, that's what we've been working hard to do. And in fact, that you can watch this film. This film is available on YouTube, and that's by design. And so if you would like to, please share it. Please feel free to share it widely, because we want people to know this story and to see it. We've had more than 2 million people watch the film so far, and we're hoping to continue to push that number up.
Okay, finally, just before I hand over to Mark, because he's got some of his own questions to ask you. How did Malala Yousafzai get involved in this? I'm just curious.
Sure. So we, when we were working on the film, we knew that we wanted an ambassador. We wanted someone who was well-known, who had a platform to be a part of our message, to be a part of the film. And so I gathered my brain trust, which was largely a few of my Muslim friends. And we made a list of those people that could play that role. And it was a list of maybe 6 or 7 people. And I remember George Clooney was on the list, George and Amal Clooney, and a few other folks. But number 1 on the list was Malala Yousafzai, because we felt that her platform, her message, what she stands for, was really in line with the message of the film. So we reached out to her. We had actually, through our group, we had about 4 different connections to her. So 4 different people reached out. And about 2 weeks later, we heard back. And her people said, oh, Malala's interested. She really loves the film. And I asked in that moment, I said, well, how did you hear, who got to you? How did you hear about it? And they said, actually, we heard about it from 4 different people. So it was, our efforts were almost too successful, but it worked out in the end, and she was, and has been, and still is a fantastic ambassador for the film, and has done many media appearances and screenings, and she went to the Oscars with us. Maybe you saw her in her silver sequined dress. She was there to support this film, so we were grateful.
Thanks a lot. Mark?
Just very quickly, because I don't want to take up any more time with me speaking. I'm just really, this is a forum about this trust and integrity and democracy, and effectively the state of democracy. So with that, I'm really kind of intrigued. We sort of briefly talked about this when we last spoke, but I'm wondering, how do you consider it might inform the story of the role of democracy in society, in particular to the evolving identity of the US as one of the models of democracy in the world? Do you think there's a story within there about his own progression, Marine within it, and his understanding of democracy?
Well, I think to me, this is a story about people coming together, about people seeing, recognizing their common humanity. And I think that's necessary for democracy to work. You know, this is in the US, as we all know, there's a great deal of polarization right now. And with that, I think often comes almost a level of dehumanization, where we stop talking with the people who we disagree with. In some cases, we even stop seeing them as being fully human. And then we end up with, with violence and events like January 6th. And I believe that we have to be talking with each other, even when we disagree greatly. We have to be remembering and recognizing our shared humanity. And that, to me, is one of the underpinnings of democracy. And I hope that this film is a reminder of what's possible, that people can change, and that we can forgive, and we can come together even when we're very different. And that's, I hope that's an inspiration to some.
Indeed it is, thank you. Just my last question really is, how does the film potentially relate to, just been talking about at the beginning of this to preface this, which is this idea of using film. We're talking about this film forum putting together. Can you tell me how your film is being employed in the US to spread a message and provoke discussion in communities? Because I gather that that's one of the roles within it, that it's being seen widely, that it's being circulated outside of the kind of mainstream area. Just last.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, every time I make a film, I think about how can I reach beyond the echo chamber? How can I, reach the people that actually need to see a film like this, who could be changed by it? And, we've often had screenings where I look out at the audience and I'm like, there's not a single person in this room who disagrees with this message, and how much good is that doing? Unless those people are then able to share it with people they know who maybe would need to see it. So my goal is always, how do we reach those hard to reach people? And with this film, we've actually had some success with that, and in part we've done that through a lot of media appearances. And I think we've done, close to 400 media appearances. And one of those media appearances led to the podcaster Joe Rogan to know about this film and to speak about this film. And if you're not familiar with Joe Rogan, I believe, has the most popular podcast in the world. And I think he has a listenership of somewhere around 15 million on any given podcast, but he reaches a much bigger audience than that. And this film has come to him now, and he's actually spoken about it multiple times on his podcast. And he's a guy who reaches a fairly conservative audience, an audience that I think many people maybe don't know Muslims who listen to his podcast. And he's taken to speaking in particular about Bibi Barami, the woman in our film. And he speaks about her as a hero. And so to us, that was a great success. The fact that he's talked about her more than once to his audience and spoken about her in very positive ways. So that was a big win for us. Another way that we're using the film is it's being employed by corporations, not just in America, but around the world, in their DE&I programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to generate discussion within the workplace. And so that's also a success to us, because you have this captive audience that is, being asked to watch this film and then discuss it. And we think that when people see this film, it does create very positive discussions and deep discussions that create a sense of hope. So those are just a couple of examples.
It's really good to hear. Thank you. Inspirational stuff for me. So we don't want to take out too much of your time, or indeed everybody here. We're going to head out into the terrace in a moment. But so we've got 10 minutes or so for any questions that might come up, if you have any. I think there's a mic. Anybody wants to ask a question?
Okay. What I have seen there, I have seen somebody like he was in the army, and then when he came out, he approaches the mosque, and then later on he became a friend and become part of that mosque. That is what I have seen. Compared to the situation we are in, I'm from South Sudan. I think we have a number of people who have been engaged in the war, and in the end, they are suffering from trauma without knowing that the war has effect on their physical appearance and mental illness, according to what I observe. So in the end, we are losing a lot of our elderly person who have been into war since 1955, 1983, up to now. So we are losing a lot of them, and in silence, because there is no communication. So this is, I saw what the film is talking about, healing. And actually it can involve a lot of the people who have gone through such conflict and the war. And when they came out, I think they need to be taken. Even when I was seeing this film, my own attitude will change towards the people that I see them behaving in a very different way. Even I start thinking about how best can I handle them with the care, the way I have seen that lady and the guy and her husband handling. I think I will start with my husband, because sometimes he behave like that because he's an army man. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you. I hope that other people feel that way too, that they see some hope in the way that, in particular, I think the way that the Barami family welcomed Richard McKinney and showed him kindness and understanding and forgiveness. I know that for me, I was very inspired by that, and I try to let that inform the way that I interact with people when I can.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, we have.
Thank you very much for a fascinating and inspiring film story. I wasn't quite clear from the story, and maybe I just missed it. What was the sort of faith tradition of the hero of the story, who then decides to embrace Islam? Was he Jewish? Was he Christian? Was he just a thoroughgoing heathen, or what? I mean, I suppose what is going through my mind is, would the story have been any less if he hadn't converted to Islam himself, but still embraced his Muslim friends instead of bombing them?
Thank you. Well, I'll start by saying, you described him as the hero of the story. I actually view the members of the mosque as the heroes of the story. I think Richard is a hero in a way too, but more so I've always viewed the mosque members to answer the question, Richard McKinney was raised as a Christian, although I think he would tell you that he wasn't a Christian during his military years because of the way he was conducting himself. I don't think that the story would be any different if he hadn't converted. I don't think the conversion part of the story is the message, to me anyway. I think the fact that Richard McKinney and Bibi Barami can be friends today, they are friends today. The fact that they can be friends coming from a place where he wanted to murder her and her family and her congregation to this place where now they are friends and they're part of the same community. That is, to me, that's the power of the story. The conversion is sort of, an extra detail in my mind.
I've got time for one more quick question. There's one gentleman.
Thank you again for a wonderful film, but if I could in this last question bring you back to the subject that we're talking about for the next 3 days, trust in democracy. What was wonderful about your story was the trust that was built up between Rich McKinney and the mosque. How do you feel looking at your country in which 74 million people still believe that the election was stolen from Donald Trump can move to the kind of trust that you display in your film? Because that polarization is terrifying for all of us here in Europe and probably also for you.
Thank you. You saved the hardest question for last. Let me try to see if I can answer that. It's very, I am often very terrified when I think about that fact that so many people are misinformed. The place that I find hope is in the future. It's in the fact that a new generation is coming forward, Generation Z, and there are quite a number of them now that can vote. And just in the last 8 years, I think it's something like I don't have the exact number, but it's something like 30 million Gen Zers now can vote. That's very exciting to me. And then another thing that I think something like 12 million people have died of old age. So I think I see a hope in the future. I hope I'm right, but I see younger people who are able to scrutinize and understand, and also the younger generation is less polarized, and I'm hoping that will be a factor that will save us. I hope I'm right about that.
Thank you very much, Josh. I really want to say thank you from me and hopefully from everybody here. If we could. So yes, just to say, great that you've joined us tonight, and very grateful for showing that film to us and setting a real sort of tone for the rest of the week as well, and a context for it, a different context for it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Leave you for the rest of the day.
Thank you so much, and enjoy your conference. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Appreciate
Take care.
it. And that wraps it up. Thanks until the further talks introduction tomorrow. So out on the terrace, I'm told that there are some drinks, which will sort of wind things down, if that's right.
Just to confirm, it maybe have been problem in the interpretation. Tomorrow, the 10 minutes special time to start the plenary is at 9:30.
For those who want to continue a little bit with talking, we have some cold drinks on the terrace now. So if you feel like it, please join us downstairs on the second floor at the dining room on the terrace with some tea and some water. And don't forget the quiet time in the morning at 7:15. Thank you.